name's Gianna. I come from America, and I'm very grateful to be in your country and thankful for the opportunity to speak to you today. And I suppose I'll just tell you how I began, and we'll go from there. But I survived an abortion, and I think that's a unique way to begin life. And I think it gives me a unique perspective on women's issues, which actually I think abortion is way beyond just a women's issue. I think it's a man's issue as well, because it takes two people to create life. And I believe once a life is created, that separate life is not just a... Do you need to be closer?
I want to put it on.
To what?
It was on. I don't need it.
Oh, you don't need it, okay. Because I have such a loud voice. I'm a singer. It's probably part of the reason why. What was I here? Oh, that once life is created, you're not just talking about my body. This is not just my body. I now have another life, another body inside of my body, and it's very simple actually. And I think through the manipulation of language and emotion, we have twisted a very simple thing. So my biological parents were 17, and my biological mother was 7.5 months pregnant, and she decided to have this abortion. She went to Planned Parenthood, and that's the largest abortion provider in the world. They work all over the world. And they've recently been exposed as selling baby parts. So I think that's interesting that they're on film tearing apart a baby, saying this is a baby, here's the leg, here's this, here's that, and then we'll go over here and say this is not a baby, to sell abortion. So if abortion is merely about women's rights, I always ask what were mine, because Planned Parenthood has ignored me. Planned Parenthood has no interest in hearing what I have to say, obviously, because I am a detriment to their cause. But I'm a woman, and I was a woman then. And so it's peculiar how they argue these things. They make no sense, full of contradictions. Also, they don't have the ultrasound on their side. I mean, now, with 4D ultrasound, you can basically see a baby doing, as we would say, called jumping jacks in America. I mean, they're jumping all over and having a great time in the womb. And you can clearly see this is a life. I also think it's interesting that when we want the baby, we say, I'm pregnant, I'm having a baby. What is it with me and flies in this nation? They love to just attack these flies.
You're not alone.
What?
You're not alone.
Excuse me. So we say I'm having a baby. We don't say I'm having a fetus. We don't say I'm having tissue, because we now want this baby. So suddenly this thing that's not valuable if I don't want it, according to the logic, is not a baby, and if I do want it, it's somehow a baby. Another aspect of this that I find peculiar is that they're not doing surgery in utero. So how can you do surgery on something that is not alive? So they must really think we're foolish people and have no ability to think. Anyway, she had a saline abortion, my mother did, and it burns a baby inside and out. Then she delivers a dead baby within 24 hours, or she's meant to. So I was to be blind, suffocated, burned, and born dead. And because I'm not burned on my body, pro-choice people love to say, she's lying, she's lying, she's lying. Why on earth would I lie about such a thing? I mean, I have been through so much, I have no reason to lie about having been through any of it. However, to their great vexation, I have medical records, and they state on them born during saline abortion, 6 a.m., 2.5 pounds, April the 6th, 1977, Los Angeles, California. That's pretty handy to have that. And so, you know, I think we justify this around the world because we've grown cold. And we're all about who we want to sleep with whenever we want to sleep with them, and we don't want any consequences, and we don't want to think about God, and we really want to be our own gods, and we really want to run the show, and we don't really want to value anyone except for who we value at the moment. And then we don't value them anymore because we don't have the same feelings anymore because we can just move along. We belong to ourselves, and who cares? But really, all of that's a lie. As a result of that, though, I believe that we justify more and more of the taking of life. But what happens then when it's you? For example, when you hear the argument, if the baby is disabled, we need to terminate the pregnancy. I have the gift of cerebral palsy, which was caused by a lack of oxygen to my brain while I was surviving this abortion. I wouldn't be disabled otherwise. It has been proven that this is why I have cerebral palsy. Now, would I choose to live without cerebral palsy, or I wish that someone would kill me because I'm disabled? No. But according to that logic, why don't you just kill me then? Because I have no value. Because I'm weaker than you. Right? Just kill me then. That's how it goes. And we may come to that point. In fact, if you allow this in Malta, all these changes, you may just come to that. We may come to that in America. We've already aborted over 50 million children, and we have their blood on our hands. It's okay. Welcome. Hello. Welcome. So you see, it starts out small. Allow the freezing of embryos, and don't think about how many children you're going to discard in that process, because it's not a life, when in fact it's scientifically proven that life begins at conception. If you can hear a heartbeat at 3 weeks, what is that? Every other aspect of life, when we hear a heartbeat, we say that person is alive. Doesn't take a rocket scientist. But in this, we say, we ignore it, because we want our own way. Anyway, because the abortionist was not at work yet, the nurse had time to call an ambulance. Otherwise, I would have been strangled, or suffocated, or thrown away in a trash can, which has happened many times in America. Many children, having survived their abortions, were not given proper medical care and thrown away. I want to emphasize that this is where you're headed into Malta if you allow these things, because it doesn't stop. People keep pushing the envelope and pushing the envelope and taking more life. I mean, now we have crazy people in America saying, you know, once the child's outside the womb, well, maybe people should be able to decide if that child should live or die. I mean, it's just getting worse and worse. But he wasn't at work, so the nurse called the ambulance, had me transferred to a hospital. I was placed in an incubator weighing 2 pounds. And they said I would die, and then I didn't die, clearly. Then after that, I was placed in emergency foster care with a bunch of idiots who didn't like me for some reason, and I don't know how you couldn't adore me. You would have to be an absolute fool. But they didn't. So they would shut me in a room for a long time. And shut the door because I wasn't liked. So the government found out about that and placed me in another foster home of a woman by the name of Penny, who was an absolute saint. By this time, I was 17 months old, 32 pounds of dead weight, unable to move, and then diagnosed with cerebral palsy. As a direct result of this lack of oxygen to my brain, having survived an abortion. So then the doctor said, in their most well-meaning way, Gianna will never be anything. She will never progress. She will never do anything more than be a vegetable for the rest of her life. Give up, Penny, they said. Give up. And Penny decided not to give up. She prayed for me. She believed in God. What a miracle. And she did my physical therapy 3 times a day. I began to hold up my head. And they said, oh, Penny, Gianna will never sit up. I began to sit up. Oh, she'll never crawl. I began to crawl. She'll never walk. I began to walk at the age of 3.5 with a walker and leg braces. Now today, I walk without a walker, obviously, and without leg braces. I do have some strange balance issues happening, which I intend to overcome by the power of Christ, because I am obviously and very happily and enthusiastically a Christian, even though it is not politically correct to say so. I am the type of person that if I'm told I cannot shout something in freedom, I will shout it all the more. So, I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I believe that it is the only thing that sets men free. And so I come to Malta proclaiming him as well, because I could have a miraculous story, but if I'm ashamed of the gospel, I see no point of saying anything at all. Whether people listen to me or not is not the point. The point is, was I faithful in my life with what I was given? Or was I ashamed of the very God that saved my life? That's the point. So I don't so much concern myself with whether or not you care about what I'm saying. I concern myself with whether he cares about what I'm saying. And you're a lot freer that way. I don't see a lot of young people who are free these days. They're too afraid of what everyone thinks. I see a lot of angry young people, and a lot of young people with chips on their shoulders, angry at the world and whining about nothing. Young people who can walk and talk without having to try, and still mad at the world. And I often think, my goodness, have a problem in your life, a real one that you have to solve and you need God for, and your whole attitude might change. You might actually be grateful for something. I have 2 friends now that can't even take a breath without having to do it consciously and with great difficulty. Can you breathe with ease? That's a gift. Can you walk with ease and not have to think about having to balance your entire body every day? That's a gift. Adversity is a gift, ladies and gentlemen. It's all in your attitude. And I would just say this respectfully. Don't make mountains out of molehills. If you have no problems, don't create them just for drama. Life is difficult enough, and they will come soon enough, and you want to be brave enough to meet them when they come, and that will not happen by whining when nothing is happening. I say this because we're cultivating, and nations upon nation upon nation is we are becoming nations of victims. But I don't subscribe to that. I'm a victor, and proudly so. I find a victimhood mentality much more crippling than cerebral palsy could ever be. I also find bitterness crippling as well. So in that light, I have forgiven my biological mother for what she's done. Because to do otherwise is a waste of time and would take my own life that I've been given. So, yes, I walk with this limp now, and I was also adopted at 3.5 by my foster mother's daughter, which made my foster mother, Penny, my grandmother. Does that make sense? I got to stay in the family, which was an absolute miracle, and even though My adoption was quite difficult. I was very misunderstood as a child. My will was despised. It was viewed as, what's the word when a child is obstinate? I was viewed as obstinate. But really it wasn't that. I was very much an obedient child, and I wanted to please my parents. It's that I needed a strong will to live through being burned alive for 18 hours in the womb, then learn how to walk the first time, then have spinal surgery at 10 and learn to walk again, and then now stand up for the innocent in the womb, and also all the way to the grave, because now we're wanting to kill elderly people as well, and anyone who we do not deem perfect in our own estimation. So it takes quite a will to stand up for these things in the time in which we live. So if I didn't have that will, I don't think I could do that. And I also decided, for some crazy reason, that I would run a marathon in 2005. I know I look like an athlete, but looks are deceiving. I decided to go to the gym and speak to the trainer. And I said, listen, my name is Gianna, and I would like to train. And I would like you to train me 5 days a week like I'm joining the army. So she did. She probably thought I was crazy, but I've been looked at that way before. And I began to work 5 days a week until I could run. And I don't run like you do, obviously. I have to run my own way, and right now I'm not able to run. But then I could run. And I was running on my toes. So I trained for 1 year, and I ran the Nashville Marathon, which is where I live, for 7.5 hours. And everyone had gone home and eaten all the donuts and everything else. But the emergency workers were still there, because they had to be, because someone was still running. And they were so happy that I hadn't given up. And the point was not to win it, I knew that I wouldn't, but to finish it. And to have a symbolic event that would say, I am bound and determined to finish my course of my life without giving up. And so I finished it. And then a handsome Englishman came along and asked me to run the London Marathon. And when you're a Jane Austen fan, a handsome Englishman asking you to run the London Marathon can be quite a perilous thing. Of course, I thought he was proposing. I was quite wrong. But I ran it anyway. I landed wrong on a training run. And so I had an injury as well as my cerebral palsy. So that took me 8.5 hours. And my body nearly gave out at the 23rd mile. And I remember talking to Jesus and saying, oh, I will be so angry if I quit 3 miles before the finish line. I cannot quit 3 miles before the finish line. I will get so angry when I go back to America. Is this boring? Some of you look bored. And so all of a sudden this feisty Irishman named Paul came up along beside me and said, come on, Gianna, come on. And he starts yelling at me in the best possible way. Come on, run. Come on, Gianna, come on. Because he knew I would be so angry if I gave up. And he helped me, that man. He helped me by yelling at me for 3 miles until I finished. And, and I crossed the finish. So all of this to say, those doctors when I was a baby saying that I would never be anything more than a vegetable, they didn't know that I would grow up and finish 2 26.2 mile marathons. And now I would like to rappel down a mountain. I would like to figure that out somehow. But I have to get my balance better first, and then I'll try something ridiculous. Because it makes for a good story, too. I'm a writer, and I love to take risks. And so we'll see what happens. Also, I have met my biological mother. She came to an event that I was having, unannounced, and she said, hello, I'm your mother. And, oh my goodness, it was quite shocking. And so I said, hello, I'm a Christian and I forgive you. And she said, I don't want your forgiveness. I don't want your forgiveness. Very full of rage. And I offered my forgiveness again. She refused my forgiveness. I offered it once more. She refused it. And I just looked at her with as much kindness as I could and said, I will no longer allow you to speak to me this way. And I got up and I walked out. To me, it's important that she knew that I forgave her. It's not important what she thinks of me, because I'm not defined by what she thinks of me. I'm defined by Christ, who is my life. I'm his girl. It's quite a privilege, really, to be the daughter of God. And I always say, don't mess with me, my Father runs the world. It's quite intimidating, I think, which is probably why I'm not married. Oh, I just thought of that. I love making handicap jokes because it's totally politically incorrect to make handicap jokes, except when you can when you are disabled, and people don't laugh anymore. It's so hilarious. Like, you have to tell people you are allowed to laugh, because we're so serious and so afraid of offending all the time that we just don't laugh. But I make handicap jokes about myself all the time. It's really hilarious when people think I'm drunk. Right? Like, and you know how drunk people always say, I'm not drunk. So I say, I'm not drunk. And then they, of course, think I'm drunk. Also, just FYI, I see some of you with tissues and things. If you're sick, please do not come up afterwards and shake my hand, because I get sick very easy. Just want to let you know that. Oh my gosh, I just got over a cold. No offense. But, also, I'm very ADD, so I'm able to tell 12,000 stories at the same time within one story. I hope you don't mind. But cerebral palsy is a gift, and I'll conclude with this, I suppose. I don't want to keep you here all day. You can have questions if you have some. But I wanted to tell you the 2 reasons why I think cerebral palsy is a gift. One is, nobody wants to hear about Jesus anymore. He is not, except what I have termed, I call him the cocktail party Jesus, the one that keeps the neighbors happy, doesn't stand for anything, doesn't raise the dead, doesn't do any miracles, essentially isn't Jesus at all, and is created in our own image and makes everybody happy. That Jesus everyone is fine with. But the Jesus that is the actual Jesus, who came to save us, who came to free us, who came to do the impossible, who came to do all that, that's the one everybody resists. But somehow, when you limp in front of them, or fall in front of them, or fight in front of them to move, they want to hear about Jesus. And so if I have to walk this way all the way to heaven, so one person might be free in their soul, it's an absolute honor to do so. I would do it all again. And so that's gift number 1. Gift number 2 is, I'll put it this way. Cerebral palsy can really do a number on your dating life, as I mentioned earlier, and I think I did anyway. You're not the first chosen, so often. And the message becomes, you are so special, Gianna. Oh my goodness. Oh, Gianna, you're so special. You are special. You are such an inspiration. You are so inspirational. You are so special, special, special. But that is not the same thing as you are beautiful. And please, I want you to be the mother of my children right now. No, very different message. So what the message kind of becomes over time is, Gianna, you are so spectacular. You are so special. But you just haven't overcome enough to be loved. Just keep on fighting. And hopefully you'll be loved one day. But just keep fighting anyway. So that's fun. And so one day I was out with this fellow, And I knew this wasn't a date. It was very obvious because we were out with other people, blah, blah, blah. It's just very attractive. It was a great opportunity to wear my red lipstick and enjoy his company without going out with him. But clearly he thought I was interested in him. And sometimes when I'm out with men that do not have disabilities, they treat me this way, that I should be so grateful to be in their company. Because I'm disabled, and I should be grateful for any attention that I could get at all. And so he, in his very sort of polite way, let me know that he just really wouldn't be interested in me. And I was furious because I wasn't interested in him. So I was holding in my rage, which was plentiful. And I went out to my car, and I slammed my fists on my steering wheel, and I cried out to God, who's been my only father, and I said, is this the only thing you have for me for the rest of my life? I'm just going to preach forever, and then I'm going to die. Thank you. Thank you for making me a woman. Why didn't you just make me a man who can just compartmentalize his entire life and just focus on his work no matter what the heck is happening in his life? But you made me a woman instead, didn't you? And I believe the Lord speaks back by the voice of the Holy Spirit. And I heard this still small voice in my heart say, I know that you have dealt with rejection. You've dealt with this all of your life. I said, thank you. Can you say something else? Because I'm pretty upset right now. And he replied, Gianna, sometimes I use the very thing in your life that is ripping your heart out to do one thing. And I said, what? And it was just like that too. Some of you might be offended by this because you might be thinking, my goodness, that girl is not reverent towards God. And in my opinion, I believe that honesty before God is the highest form of reverence. I don't want to live some sort of show in front of Jesus. He made me. Why fake it in front of him? If he gave me my passion, he can handle it. So anyway, the conversation continued. Gianna, sometimes I'm using the very thing in your life that's ripping your heart out to do one thing. And I said, what? And he said, protect you. You are exactly right, Gianna. I use those little limping legs of yours to blind men to exactly what you are. I use your legs to chase them off. Because it isn't that you are not beautiful. It's that I find most of them absolutely unworthy of you. And I am your father, and I will not hand you over to just anyone. And I thought, what? I said, I'm beautiful. I'm beautiful. I was 30 at this time and had no concept of any beauty in me. Because you're not treated that way. And so this was life-changing for me, to know just that I was beautiful. And then in a later conversation, he let me know this. Gianna, most people settle for average all of their lives, especially in this area. People get married and race down the aisle because they don't want to miss out and they want to have their kids, and that's wonderful. But most people settle for average in their lives. And I have made you for more than that. I have made you for epic love, not average love. And that costs something. And this is part of the reason that I have allowed you to have cerebral palsy. You will marry a man of noble character. He will be extraordinary. And he will be fighting his own battles while you're busy fighting yours. And he will need a woman who has suffered for decades to learn what love actually is. It's not about the house. It's not about the car. It's not about all that you can do for me. It is more epic than that. And so if you want the kind of love that you really, really want, it comes through suffering. So gift number 2 of cerebral palsy is simply this. I will marry an extraordinary man, and I will have had to suffer for decades to learn what loving him, really means. And so if it's just for him, then I would do it all again. So, I would challenge you, young people, to consider in your lives how valuable you are. To not just give yourselves away, just for now, just for thinking about right now, but think ahead in your future. Think about what you really want, and ask yourself if you really want to pay the price for those beautiful things. Because they may take time, but you will end up with such beautiful things compared to your peers. I know we don't talk much about these things because we live in such a fast-paced world, but I think sometimes we do need to consider our choices. And to the men listening, I would say this, that you're made for greatness. You are made to defend women and children, not use us and walk away. And I would like to apologize to you, really, on behalf of all the irritating and controlling women of the world, where there are many. And we emasculate you, we put you down, we don't want you to be men, or we treat you that way. And really, that's so wrong. The radical feminists have really ruined it for the rest of us, who have no trouble being women, and have no desire to compete with you. We actually do believe, I do anyway, that men and women are different. It's really not that difficult to understand. A child understands it. And I really honor men, good men. I understand that not every man is an angel, but neither is every woman. Believe me. So men, I would just challenge you to nobility. And if you didn't have a father to show you that, find a man that you find noble and ask him, and ask Jesus to show you how to be the brave man that you know you're made to be. Because we need you. We need you. Women are waiting, good women are waiting for good men to stand up and protect us. Because when you do, you free us to be feminine. We don't have to be on high alert all the time, striving and working harder and working harder and working harder, because you have chosen to not be passive. Passive men inflict so many invisible wounds on the world, and you have no idea. But you can change that by being the opposite of that. Also, girls, if you had a rotten relationship with your father, you don't need to be racing down the aisle right now. You might want to go to therapy instead. I did for 5 years. It was phenomenal. My counselor was wonderful. No shame in that. You need to heal, is my point. However, you need to do that, because no man can ever give you what your father should have. Your husband will never be able to do that. He'll never be able to mend your heart from what your father did not give you. But Jesus can. So I thought I'd tell you that, because I went for a long time looking for so much approval from men that I never received from my father. And that was a vain exercise. So I'll save you the trouble. Or at least attempt to. Yes, some of you look bored, so do you have any questions?